Tales of Fear from the Dark Web. Intro. There are stories whispered online, tales of a hidden digital world where anything can be bought and any impulse satisfied. A place where a few wrong clicks can supposedly lead you to things you can't unsee. Most people just write them off as urban legends, boogeyman stories for the internet. But what if I told you that behind some of the myths, there are truths that are far more disturbing? What if the most terrifying stories aren't the legends themselves, but the real-life crimes they help to obscure? We hear that hitmen can be hired with crypto, and that you can watch live torture for the right price. Today, we're not just telling stories. We're going to separate fact from fiction and uncover the genuine horrors that lurk in the darker parts of the web. Section 1. The Hitman for Hire Who Got Scammed. Let's start with a story that has all the makings of a dark web legend. It's got a secret identity, cryptocurrency, and a murder-for-hire plot. But this one is 100% true. Meet Stephen Allwine. On the surface, he was an IT specialist, a church elder, and a dedicated husband to his wife, Amy. They met at a Christian college, built a quiet life in a Minnesota suburb, and were so active in their church that Stephen even offered marriage counseling to other couples. But that was just the surface. Behind this facade, Stephen was living a completely different life, having affairs with at least 2 women he met on the infidelity website Ashley Madison. Feeling trapped in a life he desperately wanted to escape, but unwilling to get a divorce because of his high standing in the church, Stephen turned to the dark web. He cooked up a username, Dog Day God, and found a site called Besa Mafia, which advertised itself as a marketplace for assassins. He sent them a simple message. He wanted his wife, Amy, killed, and he wanted it to look like an accident. He paid them over $6,000 in Bitcoin and sent them everything they needed, including Amy's photo and her travel schedule. And this is where the story gets strange. In May of 2016, the FBI contacted Amy Allwine. They told her that a hacker had breached the Besa Mafia website and the site's entire database, including all the customer messages, was leaked online. Her name was on what looked like a hit list. But there was another twist. Besa Mafia was a total scam. It was just an elaborate fraud set up to take money from people like Stephen Allwine. There were no hitmen. But Stephen didn't give up. His desperation was growing. When the dark web scam failed, he decided to do it himself. In November 2016, Amy Allwine was found dead in their home from a gunshot wound. Stephen had staged the whole scene to look like a suicide, but investigators immediately saw things that didn't add up. The gun was in her left hand, but she was right-handed. A forensics team found the smoking gun. A deleted note on Stephen's phone contained the unique 35-character code for the Bitcoin wallet he'd used to pay the fake hitmen. Stephen Allwine is now serving a life sentence. His case is a chilling look at how, even when the dark web services are fake, the human intent behind them can be terrifyingly real. Section 2. The Enduring Myth of the Red Room. The Besa Mafia story shows us a real crime that was hiding behind a dark web legend. But what about the legends themselves? None is more persistent or more horrifying than the myth of the Red Room. The concept is pure nightmare fuel, a hidden live-streamed broadcast where viewers can watch, and sometimes even direct, the torture and murder of a real person. For years, these stories have circulated, feeding our deepest fears about what the internet is capable of. The rumors are always detailed and specific. Viewers supposedly pay in crypto to get access, and the more they pay, the more they can interact, giving instructions to the killer. This idea of interactive monetized murder is probably the single most terrifying urban legend of our time. But here's the thing. Despite all the stories and all the first-hand accounts you might read on forums, there has never been a single piece of verifiable evidence that a red room has ever actually existed. Time and again, technical experts have pointed out how incredibly difficult, if not impossible, it would be to live stream high-quality video over the Tor network, which is the software used to access the dark web. The network is intentionally slow. It's designed to bounce your traffic through multiple servers all over the world to protect your identity. That process is great for sending a message or browsing a simple website, but it's completely impractical for the kind of bandwidth you'd need for a live video stream. If you've ever been frustrated by a video buffering on a slow connection, imagine that, but with encrypted data being routed between continents. So what are the so-called red room links that people claim to find? Almost every time, they're just scams. They're traps set up to steal cryptocurrency from people who are morbidly curious. You pay the fee, and you get nothing, or maybe a pre-recorded fake video. The myth of the red room doesn't persist because it's real. It persists because it's a perfect symbol for our collective anxiety, a fear of the ultimate horror that we imagine could be lurking just out of sight. It's a legend that says a lot more about our own fears than it does about the dark web itself. Section 3. When legends bleed into reality. So we've seen a true crime that sounds like a legend, and a legend that's almost certainly fake. But the most dangerous territory is where those two things start to blur, where a story created online escapes the screen and causes real-world harm. And there is no better example of this than the case of the Slender Man. Unlike old myths and folklore, Slender Man was born on the internet in 2009. He was created for a Photoshop contest on a comedy forum, just an unnaturally tall, thin, faceless figure in a black suit edited into the background of old photos. From there, the myth took on a life of its own. People started writing stories, creating art, and even producing video series about this creature who stalked and abducted people, especially children. He became a new kind of boogeyman. For most people, he was just a creepy character, a piece of internet fiction. But for two 12-year-old girls in Waukesha, Wisconsin, Slender Man was very real. In 2014, Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser lured their friend Peyton Leutner into the woods after a sleepover. Geyser then stabbed their friend 19 times while Weier encouraged her. When the police found them, their motive was shocking. They claimed they had to kill their friend to become servants of the Slender Man, and they were afraid he would harm their families if they didn't do it. Miraculously, Peyton Leutner survived. The case drew international attention, not just for its brutality, but for the questions it raised about how the internet can influence young minds. Both Weier and Geyser were found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, and were committed to mental health institutions. Weier was granted conditional release in 2021, and Geyser was granted conditional release in early 2025. The Slender Man case is a terrifying illustration of how a fictional story can become so powerful in the echo chamber of the internet that it drives people to commit horrific violence. It proves that sometimes the only thing separating a scary story from a true crime is a single unhinged belief. These stories show just how complicated the relationship between online myths and real-world danger can be. It's a tangled mess of scams, legends, and genuine threats. If you're finding this look into the web's dark side compelling, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss our next investigation. Section 4. The undeniable reality of dark web crime. While hitman for hire sites are often just scams and red rooms are a myth, the dark web is far from harmless. The true horror of the dark web isn't found in its sensational legends, but in its grim, day-to-day reality as a hub for real crime. For years, massive illegal marketplaces have operated there, building global empires on human misery. The first and most famous of these was the Silk Road, launched in 2011. It was basically the Amazon of illegal goods, a one-stop shop where users could anonymously buy drugs, hacking tools, and stolen data with Bitcoin. When the FBI shut the Silk Road down in 2013 and sentenced its founder, Ross Ulbricht, to life in prison, it felt like a huge victory. But that victory was temporary. As soon as one head of the Hydra was cut off, more grew in its place. Marketplaces like Alphabay and Hydra quickly rose to take its place, becoming even bigger and more sophisticated. At its peak, Hydra was a massive Russian language market with 17 million users that processed billions of dollars in transactions before German authorities finally shut it down in 2022. And even after these huge takedowns, the cycle just continues. New marketplaces are always popping up to fill the void, selling everything from stolen credit card numbers to corporate data. And sometimes the crimes they facilitate are far, far worse. The dark web has been used to distribute some of the most horrific content imaginable. The infamous Daisy's Destruction video, a real recording of extreme child abuse produced by a man named Peter Scully, was distributed via the dark web. It showcases the absolute depths of depravity these anonymous networks can protect. These marketplaces and the content they host are not legends, they are documented realities. This is the true fear of the dark web, a persistent, resilient, and profitable criminal ecosystem that law enforcement is constantly struggling to contain. While we're all fascinated by the spooky stories, the real danger is the quiet, transactional evil that thrives in the shadows every single day. Conclusion. So why are we so drawn to these scary stories from the dark web? It seems like the tales, both true and fake, serve a deeper purpose. They're kind of the modern version of telling ghost stories around a campfire. They let us confront our anxieties about a world that feels increasingly digital and hard to understand. We're afraid of the unknown, and the dark web is the ultimate digital unknown, a place that's everywhere and nowhere all at once. The urban legends like red rooms give a face to our nameless fears of random, senseless violence. The true stories like Stephen Allwine's confirm our suspicion that humanity's darkest impulses can find new tools to work with. And cases like the Slender Man stabbing show just how powerful and dangerous the feedback loop between our digital and physical worlds can become. The line between fact and fiction will only get blurrier from here. But by understanding the difference between the myths we tell ourselves and the crimes that are actually being committed, we can get a better handle on the fears and realities of our connected world. The dark web isn't a haunted house filled with monsters. It's something much more unsettling. It's a reflection of the darkest parts of ourselves, just given a place to hide.